Welcome to The Difference Engine, the show for founders, investors, and tech innovators.
Jonathan, what have we got coming up today?
We'll be sharing the priceless lessons that we took away from this year's fantastic SaaStr event.
We'll take another trip down memory lane with another review of when categories collide.
And this time, it's when eBay met Skype.
But first, we turn to the courts. Lady Justice has delivered its verdict on British tech tycoon Mike Lynch.
Mike Lynch has been cleared of fraud charges he faced in the US over the $11 billion sale of his software firm to Hewlett-Packard in 2011. A jury in San Francisco found him not guilty of all charges.
So, Paul, what's been grinding your gears this week?
Well, it's something that's been grinding my gears for quite some time. Mike Lynch is a free man, or at least he's been acquitted on all counts.
For our viewers who may not be familiar with Mike Lynch, he?
Mike Lynch is the famously rag to riches UK entrepreneur who's been living with an ankle bracelet with his poor old daughter trying to get through her A-levels here in London, and he's in the States, extradited. He was deported, defamed, and derided by the weak UK media. The guy's had a shocker. On that, you look at some of the comments in the Financial Times on the articles they've written about Mike. There are a lot of people who are clearly misinformed and prejudged the outcome of this, and they've got egg on their face. They're not the only ones. Even his so-called mates, and you know who you are, and I quote, have been not arguing his innocence or otherwise. Well, with friends like that, who needs enemies?
Yeah, but this is a pretty complicated case. And, I think there's some objectivity and subjectivity here, and a lot of cool calculation and a lot of emotion all thrown into one big bag.
For sure. So this is all about my alma mater, HP, now HPE. That company paid $11 billion, it's quite a tidy sum, for a basic machine learning platform, which seemed to perform e-discovery on legal and other complex documents. It looked massively profitable, hence the deal and their unseemly haste. They rushed through their due diligence and later, as a result of that rush, sued the auditors who did the due diligence. Meanwhile, this guy, one of the few decent tech entrepreneurs this country's ever produced, has had 12 years of unimaginable hell.
And that's really cost HP shareholders, hasn't it? Because they chose to go after him in this way.
Yeah, is this a good use of shareholder money? God knows how many millions they've spent on this, all to get this result. And, he might come back and sue.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of questions here to be raised about why the CFO did a plea deal.
Yeah,
he's in the clink, isn't he, at the moment?
The CFO is eating porridge somewhere in a very nice US correctional facility, I'm sure. Maybe he was guilty to what he fessed up to, allegedly. But I wonder what he's thinking now about his legal advisors.
But the bottom line on all of this is, after so many years, HP really just couldn't make this stick. So a jury of honest men and women acquitted him.
And I didn't really have a doubt myself. I thought it was pretty outrageous. Sure, there was some juicy pricing. I'm sure, as there always is, there's a little bit of grayness in the channel. But what you're trying to do is to try and reclaim your credibility or whatever drove this crazy witch hunt. I'm just glad for Mike and his family that it's over.
It did look like a lot of blustering by the HP execs to hide their poor judgment and frankly, lack of due diligence. And anybody who does M&A on a day-to-day basis, like my good self, of course, knows that good DD is all in deals.
So unseemly haste, I think, to just rush to this deal. Yeah. The phrase that comes to mind is that good old Latin phrase, caveat emptor, which means buyer beware. Would you buy a car sight unseen? I think not.
Of course you wouldn't.
A lot of people do like buying clothes sight unseen over the web, and now they have to pay to return them. They don't like it so much, but really, $11 billion, it's not a huge sum these days for a leading software company.
No.
Was it overpriced? Was it dodgy? They should have found out beforehand. It's taken 12 years to get to this stage. It's absolutely crazy. I'm delighted for him. And what lessons can we learn?
I'm really reminded here about one of the classic texts in tech innovation, Rosabeth Moss-Kanter book, which I think was called When Giants Learn to Dance. And she made a great case for the commanding heights of corporate America being able to change. And she used companies like Ford and IBM and CBS. I think it's arguable that only one of them has ever really learnt to dance. But she also used Kodak as the great example. And, a worse example I cannot think of. So I think there is an issue here, which is to do with culture. It's to do with systems. It's to do with the sort of people that large companies employ versus the more buccaneering folks that are in the fast growth businesses. And I think behind all of this is a massive clash of cultures. And it's such a pity it ended up in a legal slanging match.
Absolutely. My advice to the lawyers at HP and any other large company is please don't come after UK tech entrepreneurs just because you cocked up. And can we please also, whilst we're on it, plead for the government, is there any way we can get this unfair extradition treaty, which is just complete one-way traffic, literally, which will see US spooks ghosted out of the UK without any extradition back for us coming back the other way? The biggest pity, though, apart from all of that, is this has cast a shadow of an entrepreneur that we should, in this country, be celebrating.
Absolutely. And don't forget, he was behind Dark Trace.
Exactly. We talked about those guys recently, and his VC firm has got a lot of little irons in the fire. Why on earth did he have to go through all of this when we should have been celebrating him? We should have been thinking about the future, not going back over deals that somebody wanted to redress over. It's a real shame for the tech industry.
And while we're talking about it, we should also be celebrating some braver American folks in Thoma Bravo who were happy to pay very big money for Dark Trace, despite the fact that Mike has been intimately involved in that, investing in it from the beginning.
Best of luck, Mike. Go get them, son. Don't let them grind you down. And you know who your friends are.
Think there are too many lookalike tech companies chasing the same markets? We do. We think it's because so few tech startups are able to build and lead their own categories. What matters most is to be different. Stop following and start building your own unassailable leadership position today. Working with the category design gurus at Categorical brings decades of differentiation expertise to your team. Book a consultation from our website today and we will send you our one-pager detailing how to start designing your own highly differentiated category.
You've got to learn to earn. Right, so this is our Learn and Earn session. And sometimes you have to learn by walking about. What have we learned this week, Jonathan?
This week, SaaStr rolled into town.
What's that?
It positions itself as the only non-vendor destination where SaaS companies can come together to learn and grow their businesses through content, events, and training. Or frankly, the more bombastic, the world's largest community for SaaS B2B founders.
Yeah.
But it's a really special event, and it is the brainchild of a tech executive, VC investor, and author, and not to least, an irrepressible man, not afraid to express an opinion.
He's profligate with his advice, I would say. And
profligate?
Profligate with his advice.
He's a profligate man.
He is, and probably also a very profitable man.
Indeed he is.
He's a guy that speaks his mind and is on several blogs, so we don't need to promote him too much. He puts on a mean event, though.
To his credit, he's been hands-on at the centre of Silicon Valley tech all his life, and has actually been a CEO and co-founder of EchoSign, which Adobe bought, and then he went on to be VP Web Business Services at Adobe.
What I like about this man's honesty is he says himself he should have held out for a bigger price from Adobe, but I mean, I think we wouldn't sniff at that.
Well, he's very good at admitting his mistakes.
Yes.
He even started the presentation by thanking the audience for bucking him up because he'd been feeling a bit down recently.
Oh.
But, poor old Jason, he soon recovered himself. And, I'm not surprised because SaaStr feels like a buzzing tech fest, and it's full of people looking for funding and advice and those prepared to give it, which is why we were there, and be part of the ecosystem. It was at Tobacco Dock, for those of you who have not been to London. It's a very, very hip former tobacco warehouse. And like most of these events, there's a series of rolling presentations outlining learnings for early stage companies.
I'm sure Jason gave you some learnings.
He did. And what he wanted to focus on for the assembled audience and in their rapture was what were his top 10 mistakes companies make when they try to go to market. And these are clearly some ones I think we all recognise and should definitely be
So we're
avoided.
going to power through a top 10 list is what you're telling me.
Right. So number one was don't hire a sales VP that can't sell face-to-face or demo a product.
I mean, yes, Captain Obvious a little bit, but, maybe not, because the coronavirus meant a lot of people hid behind Zoom screens.
Exactly.
And tried to do a day's work, know, in their pajamas.
Yeah.
Something that we've talked about before.
Yeah.
But he's onto something. Don't hire sales VPs that can't sell face-to-face. Why would you?
It's also because this is about early stage companies, and early stage companies are about sell, grow, grow, grow. And they're also small. So the reality is that VP needs to be out in front of customers doing the presentations. And if they want to sit in a glass corner office, managing a bunch of reps, they're absolutely in the wrong place. And I think Jason's evolution of this point was that the sales environment is too brutally competitive these days not to have your top people directly on it. Also, sales is a brutal thing to do, and people do burn out. If the confidence to sell wanes, or there's a fear of engaging directly with customers, and that starts to set in Jason's opinion, that is unrecoverable. So his point was, if you're interviewing for a sales VP, if there's any hesitation on questions or direct engagement with customers and prospects, it's a no-go sign. Don't hire.
Wow. So, okay, he's pointed his guns at sales. Where next?
Marketing. So don't hire a VP of marketing that can't do demand generation. Again, if you think through this, this should be perfectly obvious. For early stage companies, it's about supporting sales and as quickly as possible. So he said, don't hire product marketers, corporate marketers, marketing strategies in the early stages of go-to-market. The key is to achieve sales as quickly as possible. Little else matters. Yeah, you'll need those other skills eventually, but not at this stage in growth. His key question, if you're trying to hire a VP marketing, was, did they hold a commit in the last job? Now, to translate that, what he meant was, did they agree to a target, and did they hit it, underachieve or overachieve on that? And his other one was, avoid anybody in marketing with strategy in the first line of their LinkedIn profile.
Oh, I can hear the tapping keyboards as people
absolutely
remove, delete,
out.
Strategy out.
And the next thing he said was, as a founder, don't step out of sales.
Why would you?
Well, because most founders come from a technology background and they want to get back to the tech and the product development. Jason's point was that you need to appoint VPs and they'll need to report to you for a long time. And if you've got yourself a brilliant head of sales, they're going to be fantastic at opening conversations and closing the sales. What the founder has to be is to be the great middler to build the credibility in the sales pitch. He even talked about Benioff sitting at Salesforce or Davos at the top of a load of stairs and saying hello to customers, because customers love to meet founders at all stages in the relationship, and it starts at the first touch. Actually, a great sales VP will give the founder a meeting quota.
Funnily enough, this week I was with the CEO of the wonderful bunch of folks that are reinventing Jitterbit, Bill Connor, 4-time CEO. He's over there. He's meeting customers. They're delighted to meet him. That's his commitment. It doesn't get delegated to somebody else. It's the founder, or in this case, the CEO, who gets to meet the customers. Quite right, too.
And he also said in this is, don't think that hiring a COO will give you your time back. Don't hire a COO until you're $40 million plus on your ARR. His fourth thing was never to cut marketing too deeply.
Wow, okay, so this is different. So far it's been, don't hire a sales VP, don't hire a VP of marketing, don't let the CEO founder move out of sales. Now he's saying, spend a bit of money.
And he made the point, if you're the founder and growth is down, cash is tight, you've got to do something.
Right.
But if you cut marketing, you cut your future potential. Cutting sales just cuts your present. So his advice was, if you trust your VP of marketing, let them spend a clear budget the best way they can.
This has always foxed me, because obviously marketing gets whacked pretty early in most discussions about, tightening belts, etc. And yet here's somebody who really knows, several successful exits, and he's saying, cut, but not too deeply on the marketing.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then he went on to his fifth thing, which is not properly, and he emphasized properly, jumping on the AI bandwagon. I think this was quite contentious. He basically said, look, we know AI isn't always magical in all B2B spaces, but it's where the budget is and it's where the competition is. So, no AI position cuts you out of the potential spend before you've even started. So you need to be, at least in your messaging, on parity with your competition. It's that important. And if your CTO doesn't understand how to integrate AI in your current offer, it's time to get a new CTO.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've seen people who have, maybe with more of an engineering background, tried to be the honest brokers and say, really, there's not a lot of AI in my product. And therefore, for that reason, don't mention it. But what he's saying is, that's not smart.
Yeah, there was also another reference, I think, which you can take is don't have a CTO that will be better in a mature company where their job is essentially about planning and forecasting. Get someone who's a hacker or a tinkerer, as he said. Someone just loves the challenge. Someone who plays with tech when they go home. Someone who loves innovating.
Absolutely.
Not just fulfilling development requests. So again, another issue about be careful who you hire.
Yes.
Hire the right person for the right time. Sixth thing, which again is quite a contrary thing to be saying at the moment, is don't put profitability above growth.
Even in this market, I'm so surprised.
Contentious. And the point Lemkin made was that in valuation terms, growth is worth about 2x profitability in public companies, but 10x in private ones.
That's interesting.
What he basically said was that what you need to do is T2, D2 plus. Now, that isn't a Star Wars robot. It's 2 years of triple growth followed by 2 years of doubling growth, and preferably better than that.
Yeah, I've heard this called the triple, double.
That's the one.
Yes.
That's the one.
Yes,
and he
yes.
reckoned that's what it takes if you have any chance of an IPO. But you can have a tough year if everything else is delivering. That would lead me to suspect some of the IPO ambitions that are being talked around in London at the moment. So, seventh thing, do not hire the broken, the bitter, or the fractional.
We've all done this.
Yeah.
It's valuable advice.
We've been in the tech business for long enough to know that in tech, people get broken by the velocity of change. And SaaS is hard. And if you're going to build a successful SaaS company, you need people focused on it 100% and probably more in reality of the time. And Lemkin, again, came up with a strange Americanism. Sorry, Americans listening, you'll understand this, but the rest of the world doesn't. He said, don't hire anybody who can't play a 48-minute game. For an audience of Europeans and Antipodean millennials, that analogy went straight over their heads at the conference, possibly actually with the exception of the Spaniards and the Greeks, who are big basketball fans, because it's a basketball analogy.
Right.
Now, I looked it up, and this is what it actually means. There was a guy who played mostly in the 60s in the NBA, and in one season, the great, apparently, Wilt Chamberlain, averaged over 48 minutes per game, meaning that he rested fewer minutes during the season than he played during the season. Basically, this was
a bit lost.
This was a tortured analogy for just be on it all the time.
Right.
So, hire people at the top of the game then. Again, Jason really has some prejudices. He's not a great fan of VCs. He's also not a great fan of strategists or dashboardologists, which I loved. No reason to have them in a successful SaaS startup. The eighth thing.
Number 8.
Now, you and I have to love this one.
Do we?
Because, yes.
Try me.
We've got to love this one. He called it hiring for logos. And in a brief moment of humility, amongst all the bombast, Jason admitted we've all made this mistake. He didn't mention we've all suffered from it because of it. I particularly love this one, having watched the upward progress and regular sacking of a number of people in the industry who accidentally worked at a company that became a big brand much later on, long after they had left.
Oh my God, I know
right?
exactly.
Yeah, you know who we're talking about.
We do,
here.
I do. Yep.
Yeah, but after that, a series of employers, or frankly their boards, believed that these individuals, because of this one experience, had some sort of special sauce, until they realised pretty quickly they totally didn't, before, of course, paying them off just to watch them get hired somewhere else, until eventually they touched enough people in the ecosystem to become financially comfortable, but persona non grata, because people do eventually talk to each other, and eventually they do get found out. So Jason's sage advice here was that you should ask yourself, when you're thinking of hiring somebody, would you hire that person if they didn't have that desirable company logo on their CV. And there's something else I thought of while he was talking about this. I'd also add that, watch out for big brand job jumpers.
Yeah.
It can take 6 months to truly get into a job, 6 months to screw it up, and 6 months to find another. That never amounts to useful experience. So in smaller companies, that can happen much more quickly. So I'd say to anybody, hire slow, fire fast.
Hire slow, fire fast. Love it.
The ninth, and we're nearly on the 10th now, so we're nearly over this.
Penultimate.
It's about looking for instant ROI. Again, clearly this is tougher in tough times, but building a pipeline takes time. And if you don't take time, you have to ask yourself, is this pipeline real or just what we're hoping for? And really, really important things like the referrals that allow you to sell to those innovators and early adopters take time. And you've got to ask yourself too, it's a good point you made, are you incentivizing this to happen?
Yeah,
Are
right.
you really going out of those really satisfied users and really helping them to help you? The other thing was that if you're trying to get a grip on AI, if you're adding PLG, and that's small company self-service product, to SLG, big company service product, it's a really, really different ball game, and that takes an enormous amount of time.
That is
Very
interesting
different.
because the mantra has been PLG, product-led growth, meaning no salespeople, sell it off the web forever. But I think the market's figured this out. If you're buying sophisticated software, you are going to need some help. So I think it's very honest of him to say that, actually.
And the last thing he pointed out, which is something I know we've noticed, is that there seems to be increasingly an elimination of true customer success function in tech organizations. It's just this worrying trend for customer success to be integrated with, or worse, reporting to sales. But if you think about it, only one of those functions, product success versus sales, is dedicated 100% to making the customer happy. One of them is about making the accountant happy, bringing the numbers in. So these should not be confused. There should not be a confusion in customer success with an imperative to upsell. He thinks that's incredibly dangerous, and I'm inclined to agree with him.
Fascinating stuff. It's always worthwhile a couple of days down at SaaStr. Congrats again for pulling off a great event. How would you summarize what you learned then?
I think if I was going to summarize these points, when you're trying to go to market in an early stage, keep focused, stay lean and mean, and really, really, really pay attention to your hiring. By all means, hire people with corporate experience, but don't hire people with a corporate mentality or those who have been living off logos. And don't hire people who are just looking for a quiet time and a paycheck. Hire people who want to be noisy and part of the mission to change things. Don't hire job jumpers.
No.
They can spend decades learning nothing useful, or even worse, what they seem to learn is how to play politics to mask their lack of skills, and that can rot your team.
Yeah.
And I think there was one big learning, which I wholeheartedly agree with. When you're hiring somebody, one of the most important questions is, what would you do in your first few weeks after joining? There's only one answer here, and it's go and see customers. If they don't do that, don't make the hire, because the implication is they don't understand the purpose of the company to serve customers.
Look, there's Captain Hindsight.
Time for some more lessons from the history of the IT business.
Yeah. I thought today would have a look at eBay and Skype. You'll be familiar with eBay, the big online auction site where you can get anything. Back in 2005, nearly 20 years ago, eBay, which is already a pretty successful company and absolutely the category leader in online auctions, decided it was going to acquire a company called Skype, which at that point had become the leader in voice over IP, which was a new technology which was going to replace voice grade telecommunications and radically change the cost structures of the telecommunications industry. So eBay thought it would be a good idea to pay $2.6 billion for a provider of voice over IP.
Category leader.
The thinking at the time, apparently within eBay, that what they wanted from Skype was to provide enhanced communications technology that would help buyers and sellers better connect. And that would, of course, they thought, keep eBay dominant in the online auction category ahead of emerging competitors in what was the beginnings of the e-commerce space. I remember at the time thinking, what are you doing? I mean, why buy a company with the potential to globally disrupt the telecommunications value chain just to try and increase the utility of a single service and pay billions for the privilege? It just didn't make sense. And of course, smugly, the outcome was predictably less than spectacular, because eBay users, the buyers, the sellers, the shippers, had no real reason to communicate in any other way but using email. It was, a fully functional communications medium for buying and selling, recording the transactions, and so on. It was a dud from the beginning.
Let's focus back on the category creation here. So it was pretty difficult to put Skype together, in the face of, as you say, entrenched telco companies. Think of the moving parts, right? You've got the IP protocol, you've got building capacity in data centers to get the signal right on voice, not easy with network lag. You've got a brand new user interface, which looks pretty damn cool, and phone users aren't used to it. I mean, there was a lot going on. But what was noticeable in this journey that you're talking about is just how far off the original vision Skype ended up. But there are some upsides to this story. So Nicholas Zenstrom, one of the brains behind Skype, played a blinder. So he took his big check, as he does, and instead of retiring off to the sunset, he actually came up with his own VC firm. And since then, he's had a lovely run. So in building up European categories with folks like Stripe, Supercell, the game side, Klarna, etc. So the happy sort of outcome from his perspective, and I guess from a European category perspective, is from that original check, ill-advised as it may have been, sprang many flowers.
Paul, you're dead right. I mean, some goodness did come out of this. I mean, if you think about it, eBay, in the end, made a loss on it, sold it for 1.9 billion, having bought it for 2.6. But the VCs that bought it flipped it out a few years later to Microsoft for 8.5 billion, which is nice work.
Yeah, and then, of course, Microsoft, as Microsoft often does, killed it stone dead with Skype for Business, etc. But as I say, I mean, I think that this has been, on the whole, very good for the European category network, given totally. Stripe, Supercell, Klarna, etc. These are all amazing companies.
There's some great
partially
goodness.
Funded from all of this trials and tribulations with eBay.
Should we say incompetence from the West Coast actually was rather good for Europe?
Yeah, go Europe.
If we just go back to the beginning of this, what's the lesson here? What was it that eBay should have done better? If you're trying to reinforce strategic leadership by acquisition, you are de facto reframing what customers should expect from you. Therefore, it follows you should actually understand what your customers think are adding value for them in your category. Giving them voice over IP gave them nothing. It provided nothing that they wanted, and it provided less utility than what they already had. So from any aspect, this was a very, very flawed strategy.
For eBay, and rather good for the rest of us.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening. If you want to learn more, go check our blog posts on becategorical.com.
If you have a category issue, then we can help. Get in touch with us.
And remember, don't be better, be different.
Think there are too many lookalike tech companies chasing the same markets? We do. We think it's because so few tech startups are able to build and lead their own categories. What matters most is to be different. Stop following and start building your own unassailable leadership position today. Working with the category design gurus at Categorical brings decades of differentiation expertise to your team. Book a consultation from our website today, and we will send you our one-pager detailing how to start designing your own highly differentiated category.